Richard, how are you? How is
Good
London? I
morning,
miss London, Richard.
Yannick. I miss Tel Aviv. I
I miss
miss
Tel
Tel
Aviv.
Aviv. Yeah, all good. Look, what is it? It's 9:20 in the morning
Yes.
here. It's what's the date? It's Wednesday. It's dark outside. It's raining.
Oh, really?
But
Here it's really sunny. So you'll
it's
love this day. It's really sunny in Tel Aviv.
always sunny Tel Aviv. But yeah, no, all good. Thank you. All good. I think the last time I saw you, we were in a coffee shop, Ben Yehuda Street. Is that right?
Yeah, it was the last time you visit Tel Aviv, and you were
Yeah.
my guest in the Israeli conference, Marketing to Teens, and it was so fun together.
Listen, it was a great event. It was Lego, Nintendo. They were
Yeah,
presenting
yeah,
some
Lego, Nintendo.
really great speakers. Yeah, it was like great to be a part of. So again,
Yeah,
thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me this morning to have a chat with you.
yeah, and the reason I wanted to chat with you is about the YMS LA conference. I couldn't make
Yeah.
it. I wanted to come, but I couldn't make it. So it's a good opportunity for us, for me, to hear from you. How was it? Some insight. But first, just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, Richard.
Well, thank you so much. So yeah, look, for those that may or may not know, so I'm Richard Jackson. I'm general manager at Vox Burner. And again, for those that maybe aren't familiar with who we are at Vox Burner, we are Europe's leading youth insights platform, offering youth marketing conferences, bespoke research and insights and content into what's happening into the lives of probably the most interesting and exciting and valuable demographic of our time, generation Z, generation Z. Yeah, so that's what we do.
And YMS conference is in London, in Berlin, in New York, and in LA, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, so youth marketing strategy YMS, yes, hosted across the globe, and I mean it's been almost a 10-year journey to build the event to where it's got to. And obviously, let's not forget the 2 years when no one was allowed.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
And I missed it. I missed it. I've been
I
visiting
missed it.
yeah, for almost 10 years, every year, in London, and suddenly for 2 years I couldn't come because of the
Yeah,
COVID.
look, it was a real. Well, obviously, it was total nightmare, but it was a real sobering moment as to really how important that event is, like to the youth marketing industry, not only in terms of organizations being able to learn about Gen Z, but also for those individual marketeers, for that there's something very powerful about large groups of people coming together to discuss.
From where?
So,
Like I know that I was the only one from Israel, but I guess people, visit from all around, right? It's not just from UK.
yeah, absolutely. From all over the world. People come from Spain, Italy, obviously Israel. People from the States come over, and even in the UK, people travel up and down to come to the event, and for people to really miss out on those opportunities to catch up with colleagues and network and
So fun.
see what your competitors are doing. How exciting is that to see what your competitors are up to? So it was a real sad couple of years, but thankfully, we're back and raring to go, and,
Yeah.
and, and since the pandemic, have hosted a number of live events. So yeah,
And so many brands are there, on stage and in the audience. So it's
yeah,
really a big celebration. And maybe the
no,
next.
absolutely. Yeah, I think like celebration is a really good word, and thank goodness we can all use that word celebration. It's a time
It is celebration.
to to celebrate, not only what's happening in the marketing industry, but also to celebrate young people. I mean, the event itself, it attracts, it doesn't attract, it's not for young people, it attracts
Yeah,
marketeers and
the
so on.
marketing.
But yeah, but to celebrate this demographic and to see how they're impacting and challenging the way that we all work and are questioning how we all work. It's bloody amazing.
Yeah. So maybe the next question, I know the answer. Why it's so important for brands today to understand, the Z generation? Why do
Yeah.
they need to work so hard to understand them?
I think like for a number of reasons. I think like first and foremost, I think from like the ground level up, it's like they're the future consumers. They're the ones that if you can get brand loyalty from a young age. So, students, colleges, and so on, hopefully that individual, that young person will stay with your brand for life.
For life.
So they've
if you
got
start talking to them when they're young, it's a relationship actually.
Especially now more than ever, I think like a relationship is like a really, really like spot on word. So, they've got spending power, and that's it's like quite a crude way to look at it, but that's like from like base level. But then also, as we kind of up that pyramid, why else should brands be understanding young people? Well, because they're the ones that potentially in 5 or 10 years, they'll be looking for jobs. For jobs, they'll want to attract talent. And what better way than for a young person to be in love with a brand and want to bring on their skill set to that brand? And I know, and we spoke about that quite heavily at the event. So ensuring that, that they can retain young people and attract young people to their brand and so on. And then finally, like they're like the future, and we say quite a lot, they're our future leaders. Someone has got to be president. Someone has got to be CEO. Someone's got to be CMO. Someone, and it's going to be these people, this cohort of people growing up. And if brands aren't connecting with them and understanding them, they're going to be forgotten and left behind. And I think certainly in the UK, not mentioning any names, but a number of brands over the past 2, 3, 4 years have gone bust, like bankrupt, ceased to exist. Enormous brands that when I was growing up, when I was younger, were household names. You think
it's because they lost the relevant for young audience? They forgot the young audience, they forgot their generation, and it's like they're no more vital. It's someone. It's when it's like a city with no young people. It's like a dead city. So maybe this is the story of these brands.
Absolutely, it's like they forgot about who's going to be purchasing their items or coming to their stores in 4 or 5 years in time, and as such, they didn't, whether or not because they didn't move online to online retail quick enough, or just the shops themselves, the stores didn't represent how young people want to shop.
If I understand, there are so many brands in this conference, not even brands that market to teens, brands that hire the Z generation, or brand that invest in teens now, because in the future, there will be future customers or something, But so can you tell me about 2 or 3 brands, if you can think about 2 or 3 brands that it's for me or for the audience now who listen to us, it's a surprise that they take part in this conference. Like you say, it's not a teen brand. It's not a brand that's relevant to teens, but he's there. He's on the stage of YMS. Can you share a name that you were surprised at?
What, as in the attend the event? Sorry,
attending, or maybe,
Look, I maybe don't want to single out specific brands
because it says something about him that it's not. I see. Oh, it's a tricky question. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, but I think it's fair to say I think it's the ideal situation if brands that are seen to be a little bit grey, a bit dull, are at the event.
Can I tell? Like, I was surprised. I can say I'm from Israel. I was surprised when, I think it was last year, that the BBC channel was on stage. And in Israel, actually, it's quite similar. There is a huge channel that it's called Kan 11, and it was old. But then they understood that they must talk to young people, and they started produce content for YouTube and for TikTok. And it's gone so well, and they did such a revolution. And I think this is what I felt when BBC was on the stage.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good example. It is a very traditional British brand, like media owner. And over the past 4 or 5 years, they've been very aggressive on how they market to young people. So you may or may not have heard, they've got like BBC iPlayer, a bit like Netflix or whatever.
Exactly.
And they're constantly churning out new platforms for young people. So it's actually a really good example of an organization, that has seen the importance of ensuring that market, because people don't watch TV the way they used to, and so on. But a good example. But I think on that point, I think if you're a brand that isn't in touch with young people, that doesn't understand them, to see them in the room, I think is more exciting than seeing an Apple or, you know, a Converse or a Vans, because they've seen the value in young people and they're overtly making an effort to understand them more. So it's like, for me, it's like job done. It's
Exactly.
X or Y.
One
brand.
of them. So let's talk about your insight, you know, and something you can share from this conference. So I saw Panasonic was on stage, and you talked a lot about communities, right? Can you share some insight, you know?
Yes, so Panasonic, you know, it's like, and again, I don't think Panasonic would necessarily be your classic, if you would think of a technology brand.
It's not a classic.
It's not a classic one, but we opened up the event at 9:15 in the morning with a really fantastic session from Panasonic and IMGN Media, which were their agents they work with. And they were speaking a lot about, as you mentioned, like communities. And I think everyone, well, maybe not everybody, but it's certainly common knowledge that, you know, community is something that's hugely important to young people today. But they shared this idea of, you know, not forcing a community. And you know, and sometimes
it's very smart. It's very smart.
Because it's like sometimes there's no need for that conversation. And, you know, obviously they have lots of products within their portfolio, you know, Panasonic, and they just shared an example of, for example, the Dyson. Do you have Dyson brand over in?
Yes, of course.
So Dyson, and it's like there doesn't necessarily need to be a community for people that love Dyson or that product. And it's like choosing where that community like naturally sits.
So not every brand, if I understand right, not every brand need to build a community.
Not every brand, or maybe they need to build a community that's micro and it's very, very specific rather than casting the net so wide. Because, you know, I actually, again, just using the Dyson as an example, I have a Dyson. I actually really like the Dyson. I mean, I'm not Gen Z, but you know, I like the Dyson.
Yes, you are. You are.
Yeah, I am. But yeah, I like the Dyson brand, but I don't need and I don't want to be in a community with fellow Dyson, you know, owners. So look, I thought there was a really nice way to open up the event by really calling out and challenging the status quo. You know, it's very easy to say, build a community, start a conversation, but actually not every brand and not every young person wants to have a community for every single product that they consume.
And it's so hard today, you know, to work with Gen Z and to explain them, you know, why to be part of our community, our brand community, or our brand movement. It's getting harder and harder, you know, for us to approach and tell them join our community.
Exactly, they're like literally inundated daily with options to join these communities, and it's like, and if they want to join it, and it feels natural to them, and it feels, dare I say the word, authentic, like organic, then they'll join it. You know, if that messaging is on point. So it was a really nice way to open the event. And again, they went on to make quite a bold statement to a room full of marketeers that, you know, the goal of marketing isn't to sell the product. And you know, when they dropped that line, there was definitely this like sense of there's like this lull in the room. Everyone was like, oh. Like,
yeah. What did you say? Yeah. So what is the goal?
So the goal is, and they said to quote, to make someone's day better. And it's like the goal of marketing to make someone's day better. Like it sounds great. It's like what a great value to live your marketing, to live your marketing value. But it's about telling a story and getting that audience involved in that story, you know, and making their day better through that narrative. And every story in you know, it has a beginning, mid, and end. And for those marketeers that obviously, you know, want results, they want their MQLs, they want the ROI, they want to see those leads generated, they're not going to get it. Well, potentially, but the majority will not get it at the start. And it's like, and especially for Gen Z, they're not going to buy as soon as they hear the introduction. It's like watching a film, you know, you're not going to get the full grasp of the narrative in the first 5 minutes. And it's like, let's take them on a story from the start, the middle, and at the end.
And it's about values, as you said, you know, it's about values, it's about making my life better, you know, and it's so important when you work with Z generation, you know, to understand Yeah, to understand what they feel and what they want, you know, and how
And
to make
that's
their day
it.
better.
It's enriching their lives through that narrative. And again, I think it's very easy to, to sort of just throw out that sentiment, just enrich their lives through marketing. So obviously there's a lot more that goes into it, but for them to sort of open up the event really by talking about the importance of narrative, taking your customer or potential customer on a journey to then see hopefully the end result, I thought was really bold, and it really set the
Yeah,
tone
it sounds.
for what the event is about, really, storytelling. So it was a really strong start.
But
we should have seen it, but yeah, maybe.
yeah, you know, and it's not even just selling or telling a story or values. You know, we see more and more brands that supporting young people. You know, and I'm talking about mental well-being and wellness. You know, we
Yeah.
see, and I know that many brands in the conference talked about, you know, their goal to make life better. So can you tell me something about that issues?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, talking on, on narrative now more than ever, young people really do expect the majority of brands that they interact with across the day to have a view on what's happening in the world, or and so on. So whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's the individual brand kind of their view on that. But certainly, and we spoke a minute about enriching their lives and to have a positive effect on their mental well-being, and when I was, mental well-being when I was growing up, it just wasn't something that was
Yeah,
spoken about, and
it
certainly
isn't
wasn't spoken about for
by brands
brands.
exactly, you know, and this, you know, it's really it's changing, and brands understand their part in young people's life. You know,
Mm.
we see more and more brands talking about mental illness.
And it's difficult. And it was discussed at the conference. It was difficult because if a marketeer goes to work for a brand, they're not a mental wellness expert. Their job is to market a product, and the expectations of what young people want from their campaigns is just so much more than what it once was.
Can you recall an example? Like you have a good example that's something that inspired you or inspired the audience, you know, when it comes to a brand involved in improving lives for young people?
Yeah, so we touched upon the Starbucks campaign that was run.
Mm.
They did a campaign, and like, forgive me for the exact like wording of the campaign, a mermaid campaign that was all around like non-gender stereotypes and helping young people with identity issues and so on and so forth. And this idea that a brand understands what a young person may be going through if they're if they're in crisis around that or confusion. And for a coffee brand, a global coffee brand, to be putting out a
Exactly.
message like that, if you're a young person wherever you live, to see that, it's like really quite touching, and it lets them know
Yeah.
that they're not alone, and it brings them on this narrative journey. If they don't want to write their name because they don't want to be pigeonholed as a gender, there's ways that
It's
Starbucks will help them.
such a great example. And
And
I
it's like,
think,
so that was something that we spoke
yeah,
about. And
Starbucks doing such a great job in understanding, you know, and that Jen embraced the brand. You know, I heard there was a big article in Israel here that talking about, you know, the headline was the Z generation really saved Starbucks thanks to Z generation.
oh, really?
This is the
Wow.
article, yes. And I think this is
Yes.
a great example of understanding your clients, you know, and doing
Yeah.
not just marketing,
But
but
you
more.
look, exactly, like we said at the beginning, the end goal isn't to sell a product. And it's like, that's like a great example. And, we've done a lot of work in Vox Burner around young people's like mental well-being. We found that, 87% of young people, it's like an enormous amount of young people, a percentage of our sample, want to see mental wellness content
It's
online.
crazy. Wow.
And there's like a need and a thirst and a hunger for that, and brands want to hopefully keep up with that. And it's a real challenge to get that messaging right, but certainly it's an expectation
It's
for
an
brands
expectation. Exactly.
to have a view and to enrich their lives through that. Yeah.
Yeah. You talked before, and maybe we'll, you know, it's the last point that we can talk about. You talked about treating Gen Z not just as consumers, but as workers. and now the in the age, the older of Gen Z, now in the age of 23, 24, they are workers, they are talent in the big companies. And I saw that, in the last couple of years in the YMS conference, you talked a lot about how to reach them and how to work with them, and the challenge, and there are huge challenge, not just to sell to them, but how to work with them and how to, as an employee. So maybe you can share some insight about it.
Absolutely. I think, the idea that we push across a lot of our work is, the importance of young people is because they're our future leaders, our future CMOs. One day they'll replace you, Yannick, like in your role.
No, I don't think so. I think you're wrong. Yeah. Mostly you're right, but this is, never.
This is wrong.
This is wrong.
This is wrong. It's certainly a box burner. There's definitely some people that are going to be looking at, my job in a couple of years, I'm sure, potentially. But look, it's like they're the people that are going to be building the campaigns, executing the brand identity, and ultimately looking to build profits for companies. Like that's kind of what's, And we had a great session by a company called Tapin. And I think maybe we should add in some of these links for these speakers.
We will.
So to let people know, a guy called Mills, who's actually a British guy, and he went down very well. And yet he was speaking just around the importance of young people in the workplace and what they want from work. And
what they want. So what is the main issue? What is the main insight that you can share with us? Is that, it maybe surprised you?
Yeah. So look, it does link back to what we were talking about before about mental wellness. They want that work-life balance. And it's not to say, and that's not to say it's because they don't want to work or they want to lock off at 5 and, go to the pub or whatever.
They're not lazy. They're not lazy. They want
not lazy. They just value their well-being. And they know that if they're feeling good, both mentally and physically, they'll give their best at work as well. So that work-life balance, absolutely, is key, but also where they work. And the pandemic may have had some influence on this because there's a generation that are growing up who have never worked in an office. Their work experience, may have been online. They've never interviewed in person. They've never had a first day. And I remember, my first day at work, you've got anxiety and a bit nervous, and then, you then maybe go for drinks with your colleagues. And what that does is it buys emotional buy-in to that organization because you've met that person, you've shaken their hand, you've had a drink, there's that emotional tie immediately. Whereas if you're starting on Zoom, you just close the laptop and you go and speak to your mates.
Exactly.
So to retain talent has just become so much more difficult because there's that disconnect between the person starting work and the people employing them. They don't particularly care if they quit because they've never met them. And that's it's a bit of it's view. So that was discussed, but also, the idea that, young people do want to be in an office and they really crave that sense of in-person. So this is an era that will be working remotely forever. It's old hat now. People want to be working back in an office.
Yeah.
They want to be there. And, similarly, Voxburner, we've done a lot of work on young people in the workplace. And I believe, it's something around, here we go. It's 49% of young people. So, just under half, they want to be in an office.
Yeah, we see it in Israel too. Exactly. We see it in Israel too. You had a crazy number about TikTok and about the relationship between TikTok and looking for work.
Yeah. So in terms of the workplace, that's, hugely important to them. But in terms of looking for talent and how young people are looking for jobs. So social media, an enormous way for young people to be finding jobs. And the idea of just going on LinkedIn, they're looking for it on TikTok, on Twitter, and they're using these platforms to promote themselves. And you referenced about that TikTok site. It was 37% of young people,
crazy
again, which I think is crazy, have made a resume, like a CV, on TikTok and sent it there.
It's amazing. I love it. It's amazing.
I love it, and I want to see them.
I want to see them too. Exactly.
I would love to see it. But, and again, for that brand, if they're looking to attract creative, talented, switched on the point young people, they need to be on those platforms. Otherwise, they're going to miss out.
Exactly.
And so, so young people in employment was brought to the YMS event purposely, for that, to let these organizations know that their future creatives or their future talents aren't living on LinkedIn. They're living on TikTok. They're living on Twitter. They're living on, wherever, Discord.
But Discord, maybe, yeah. And I hope, next time we will hear more about Discord. New platforms are just getting stronger and stronger. And, here in Israel, from 5 teenagers said Discord is their main platform.
Really? Yeah.
It's huge, and we didn't talk about Discord that much. And to understand, what happened there, and maybe their next job is because they found it in Discord. So the challenge is so, it's so challenging for you, to stay connected and to be relevant, not just the brand, even you for behind YMS, I guess it's a really challenging, that every year to bring the new stuff, to bring the news and the trends. It's
I mean, the team that put the event together and put all our content together, a lot of them, are Gen Z. They're living and breathing what's happening. So, and it's so interesting every day.
And this is one solution, even in Think, I think most of my employees, are Gen Z, because you can't talk about Gen Z, and not to be and not to let them be part of it. And this is a message to the brands themselves. They want to be around the table. They want to be in the decision making. They don't want us just to talk about them. They want to be involved. They want us to share the product with them. They have something to say. They want us to listen to them.
Absolutely. It's all about, and again, getting that real-time feedback from your employees.
Exactly.
So, so we brought that to the event, in our London event that's happening in June next year.
This is the next event.
The next event. Well, actually, the next event's in New York.
In New York.
But the next event in London, which is our largest flagship event, we're bringing a whole half a day dedicated to employment.
Really?
Yeah, there's going to be a half a day around that. With hopefully some really great talent, talking about examples of case studies, but also getting some young people up on stage as well to talk about their experiences in finding work.
And you have a date? Like, we can save the date if you have a date.
Look, save the date, book your tickets, book your flights even and tickets.
Yeah, I will.
It's June the 7th and 8th, 2023. Yeah, so book your flights.
I will be there, and I hope that many people who listen to us now will be there too. Maybe I won't be the only Israelis this time. Although I bring friends, every time I bring friends with me. So, and it's as I said before, it's such a great event and such a great celebration.
Thank you.
So we have a date. And I'll be there.
Fill the plane.
I'll fill the plane and come to Tel Aviv. And maybe you'll come to Tel Aviv before, so we can catch up.
For sure. Such a beautiful city. When I was there for your event, it's the first time I'd been in many years. And I was actually talking, just a side note, I was talking to a mate last night over dinner, and we were just saying, like, how's the year been? And I was actually, and I spoke with one of the highlights of my year was being apart from your event, in the Dead Sea. One of the most special moments of the year for me.
Really?
Yeah, it really was.
Richard, my friend, it was really, really fun and a pleasure. And I always learn from you. And I hope we can meet again very soon. And thank you for your time. And I hope the audience, and the people who listen to us learn something new about the Z generation.
I absolutely hope so. And as always, any questions from your audience, do put them in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day there in London.